I will never forget this for the rest of my life. I got on stage and I immediately was like, I'm gonna pass out.
Hi, welcome to the KRISTIN'S Jorn show. As you guys may have noticed, over the past couple months, we started our videos by mentioning that Kristin is on Standup tour.
It's true.
She's currently still on Standup tour.
Still. I will be on Standup tour in perpetuity.
What are your most upcoming dates?
I am doing San Diego on January 26th. I'm doing Plano, Texas on March 23rd. I will announce more dates soon.
Where can people sign up for your mailing list?
At KristinCherico.com. And that's, if you sign up for the mailing list, that's how I know to come to your city.
Yeah.
Like that, I'm not gonna spam you. I might write you cute little notes from now and then, I don't know. Betty, stop chewing on the ball. That's the headline stuff.
But this video.
Y'all have been asking for a while for me to talk about like how I got into stand-up and like talk about like kind of my journey. And for a while I was like, who cares? But then we needed to do a video that wasn't about food. So all of a sudden I'm very invested in telling you about this.
But a lot of people in the comments have been like, Kristin, like I can't go to your show, but I want to like hear more about your experience, or I might go to a show in the future. So I think it's just good for people to see that like.
Or I want to do stand-up, which like
That's awesome too.
Yeah.
I just think it's nice for like people to see like
what's going on. What
and that creators can go and have other interests and do other things, and it's important to support them.
And actually, we're working on a project right now, which I won't name, that I guess kind of talks about this topic a little bit more about like what life is like as being like creators and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And we'll talk more about that soon. But anyway, let's talk about
I feel like you're not gonna toot your horn enough, so I'm gonna do a little bit of it. Okay, let me tell you. So Kristin has been doing stand-up for less than 2 years.
Yeah,
less than 2 years. Kristin has opened at major comedy clubs across the United States. Kristin is a touring comedian. Kristin has sex with the coolest girls. And Kristin, she curves the hottest boys.
I don't know if that's how I would have introduced myself.
All that to say is Kristin has been doing stand-up for not very long,
Yeah.
but she's had a ton of success with it, and we're all very proud of her.
Okay.
So tell us how this started,
Okay,
Kristin.
so I should caveat that I wanted to do stand-up throughout my 20s and my 30s. But to be really honest, I was too scared. I couldn't handle the anxiety of doing open mics. And the thing about doing stand-up is that like, you have to get on stage a lot and try a lot of stuff that doesn't work. And you have to get comfortable with that. And I was never comfortable with it. So like, I would go to like a mic maybe once a year in my 20s, and then it would actually go well, but it would be such a horrifying experience for me that I would just be like, I'm done, I'll never do this again. And then I kind of was like, you know what? I don't need to be a stand-up. Clearly, because I don't like doing it. It means I don't like doing it, which is like not correct logic. Because what I actually needed to do, and didn't realize it at the time, was push through
that initial discomfort.
I needed to do that, but we're getting to that. So anyway, fast forward, I started BuzzFeed. I do like a lot of videos at BuzzFeed. It's weird because we're talking to you directly, and sometimes like it's hard to sort of see like the mechanism of the video around this conversation. But like Jen and I are ostensibly professional improvisers. That is what we do. We don't script these videos out. We just kind of get on and sort of go for it.
Our audience is like, yeah, we know.
Yeah, we know. Betty brought me her toy. Betty,
we're trying to do our job.
We're trying to do our job. Betty is just like, okay, but my job is tug. Okay, you're not being a good coworker. Something that I feel like came up in like when I was doing videos at BuzzFeed in the beginning is people would be like, oh, are you writing out your one-liners? And I'm like, no. That was so weird to me. I used to hate it when people would do that. It was like mostly male producers.
Yeah, people would just assume that Kristin was like not smart enough to be a good improviser.
To come up with stuff off the dome. And I was just like, no. It was frustrating. For a long time, I kind of convinced myself that like making videos was my performance outlet. That like I didn't need any other performance outlet, that this is what I wanted to do forever, that like this is the future. And like it is to a certain degree, but like
that was a little bit of you being in denial about maybe what you really wanted.
Yes, absolutely. I spent a lot of my life in denial about what I really want.
You're in denial.
And like the thing is people would, this is such a ridiculous thing to say. When I say people, I mean my friends. I don't mean like randos. Like friends of mine, like Freddie actually. I remember Freddie very frequently was just like, you need to do stand-up. I think that you need to do stand-up. And I was like, I can't tolerate that level of discomfort. I was just afraid. And so like, and then I kind of reached a point where I was in my late 30s. Well, first I was in my mid 30s, and then the pandemic happened. And then I was in my late 30s. And then I was like, it's too late for me. The thing about stand-up is most people, the path they take is they start when they're younger. They're terrible for like 10 or 15 years. And then they start to break out in their late 30s maybe. Some people break out earlier, but like most of the time you break out like in your late 30s because like you finally get to the point where like you know yourself, you know your material, you're good at the craft. And the thing is, I didn't do that step. I was just in my late 30s. The comedians who are about my age are like breaking out right now. In my mind, I was like, I'm too old. I guess like a few things happened. So the first thing happened, my friend Josh Gondelman, I don't remember how this came up, but I think I asked him, I was like, do you think like 38 is like too old to start doing stand-up? And he, in his honestly wisdom and also kindness, was just like, no, I don't think so. I think honestly, you're old enough where you have interesting things to say and you probably know more about yourself and have more material to draw on. So you're probably gonna have that going for you. And I hadn't thought about that before. So I was like, okay, well, I guess I do have a lot to say. I guess I have lived kind of an interesting life. You know, there are a lot of things about like my identity and personality and life experiences like I can draw from that are unique that like, you know, other people don't have. And I think that, okay, how about I try it? One day I got drunk at Disneyland. I was like, you know what, I'll just sign up for a stand-up class. So I signed up for a stand-up class because I was like, if I don't like it, whatever. Signing up for a stand-up class felt like a very low stakes, easy way to sort of see if I liked stand-up.
Yeah.
So I do the stand-up class. I met some great people in that class. I met some people who are like gonna be lifelong friends from that class. So like I met great people in that class. The graduation is you to do like a 5-minute set at like a club. And I was like, I don't know if it's gonna be good. I don't know if I'm gonna like this. I don't know. Like it just, at that point I was really like 50-50 on it. It was a big show too. It was like an audience of 200 people, which was crazy.
Yeah, I was there.
Yeah, you were there.
I was
yeah,
there.
you were there. I will never forget this for the rest of my life. I got on stage and I immediately was like, I'm gonna pass out. I'm gonna pass out in front of those people. But I was like, I kind of had to do the thing I did when we were filming Empty Suitcase Grease, where I just sort of like
white knuckled through it.
White knuckled through like my very first joke, and I got like my first huge laugh that I didn't think I was gonna get, and I was like, oh,
you kind of like knew
a monster was born. Instantly, a monster unfurled from my body. It was just like, oh, you're into this?
Do your friends want to come to your shows on Tuesday nights at 10 p.m.?
Interesting. Only the third time I've been on stage. I'd say like in the top like 10 biggest crowds I performed in front of. I look back at some of those jokes and like they're fine.
Well, yeah, I mean, it was earlier in your development.
It was the first 5 minutes I'd ever written in my life. And actually, I have a friend in stand-up who apparently was the sound guy on that showcase, and he came up to me like much later, like a year and a half later, and was just like, I still remember your showcase. The thing is like once you get on stage and you make people, like a bunch of people laugh, it is really hard to unlearn. It is almost impossible to unlearn those feelings. So then after that, I took another class. Last summer I started going to like tons of open mics.
Yeah.
I went to tons of open mics. I went to like multiple ones a week.
You were going to places that had names like Jerry's Sunroom Shack.
Yeah, I did. I was doing bar shows at like at
JC's Fish and Dip.
I did a show at a place called Jalapeno Pete's.
Yeah. I mean, I will say I have enjoyed every show of yours I've gone to.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't dragged you to many of them. And that's kind of part of it, is it like, I think that like once I saw how fun it could be, I was able to like sit with my discomfort of doing open mics. Because doing open mics for me, it was just like the idea of standing in front of people and not being funny, I wanted to die. And then I kind of learned that like, that's sort of part of the process and nobody judges you for that.
No one's expected to kill at every open mic.
No, in fact, people don't kill at most open mics. I sort of kept that in the back of my mind that like, oh, okay, well, what I need to do is I just need to keep going. And then I got a coach, which was really helpful because like, I kind of,
you want to jumpstart this.
I want to jumpstart it. I wanted to like meet people. I wanted to meet like the people who could help me get onto shows. I needed to meet bookers.
Yeah, you need to network.
I needed to network. I needed to like fine tune my skills quickly. Like, cause here's the thing. I know a lot of people in stand up are gonna be mad at me for saying this, but like whatever, it's true. There's a lot of transferable skill between doing YouTube and doing stand up. It's more than I think people would like to admit. The biggest part of it is being comfortable talking about yourself in a self-aware way on camera. That is, I think, one of the biggest hurdles that people struggle to get over. I think that not being self-aware on stage is why people aren't funny. If you aren't clear about who you are and what people see in you, it is basically impossible to do any of this. And it's impossible to do YouTube, it's impossible to do stand-up. And so like, because I'd spent like 10 years of my life professionally doing that, there was that transferable skill.
Yeah. You sort of needed to have like the context around you in place where it'd be like a community, places I'd like to go, places I'm comfortable doing open mics at.
And there's also like a lot about stand-up stylistically that like I had to learn. That like I'm still learning obviously because I'm less than 2 years in. So like last summer was just me hitting mics, writing, taking classes.
I mean, you were kicking ass. I would be like, what are you up to? You'd be like, oh, I'm going to Stonky Honks. Jim Bap Salap tonight to do my 5 minutes and get a thing of boat tacos and But you really like, you threw heart and soul into it. It was clear for everybody around you that this was something serious
that I loved.
Fulfilling.
Yeah, I love doing. And then I did my first 5 minutes at the Comedy Store, which was exciting. And then I did my first set at the Improv.
For those who don't know, what are the Comedy Store and what are the Improv?
Okay, so in case you don't know, the three major comedy clubs in Los Angeles are the Comedy Store, the Improv, and the Laugh Factory.
There's a fourth one called Stippy Tips Barn Door.
Well, there's a fourth one called Flappers.
Oh, yeah, that's actually real though.
There are lots of other clubs in town, but like the three major clubs, like those are kind of the ones that like famous comedians come through and like, you know, work on material, stuff like that. So like doing your first sets at those clubs is like, it's a landmark moment for you as a comedian. People spend years trying to do their first sets, even in the small rooms at those clubs.
Yeah.
And so the fact that I was like getting in like within 6 months was just, it's not common. And I'm not saying that like, I'm better. It's more just, I knew what I wanted. And
you attacked it with a singular focus.
Yes, I attacked it with a very singular focus. And I had an advantage of the fact that like, it was easier for me to get booked because I have a big Instagram following. Granted, I'm like an unknown quantity, but like people were willing to take a chance on me.
Yeah.
And so with that chance, I needed to be good. Like I couldn't just show up and do nothing. I had to like actually be good at this. I did my first 5-minute set on the Improv main stage, which was awesome. So this time last year, I'd just done my first 10-minute set. At the time, I was like, oh no, I don't know if I can do 10. I was really...
You did 30 minutes this past weekend.
Yeah, I did 30 minutes on Sunday.
Yeah.
Easy. When I started touring, I was like, it hasn't even been a year since I'd done 10 minutes. I hadn't even written 10 minutes of material. And then I went to New York and I did like a set at the Stand in New York. So I did my first set at the Stand, which is really fun.
Yeah.
And then I got very sick for like 2 months.
Yeah.
And then I like hit the ground with like just a ferocious, I just started writing. I just wrote like, I tried to write 5 new minutes every week. And like, I didn't have 5 minutes necessarily, but I just like wrote and did shows and wrote and did shows. And I think like the more shows I did, the more people would put me on their shows. And then I would do more shows. The part of stand-up that honestly is the hardest for me, and I don't mean hard in terms of skill, just hard in terms of like endurance. And also just in terms of like COVID consciousness is like so much of stand-up is the hang. Yeah. So much of stand-up is hanging out with other comedians, being around and like, you know, saying hi and doing stuff like that.
And also like listening to other people's sets.
Listening to people's sets and like, you know, kind of just being in the community. And like, that's a huge part of it that I still struggle with because I try to limit my exposure as much as possible. Like I've kind of already decided that like, I can do as much as I can mask as much as I can ask people in my audiences to mask as much as I can use nose sprays, I can vaccinate. But like, I have accepted in my heart that like, I love stand-up enough. I'm gonna have to take some risks to do it. And like, I don't love that. That is kind of the case. Yeah. So that's where we are. Oh, and then I did my first festival.
Yeah, the Bergamot Comedy Festival.
Comedy Festival. I did my first festival at the Crow. It was really fun. And then this summer I was like, all right, what are my next goals? And then my coach was just like, I think that you should maybe, because I was like, oh, you know, I bet if I did a show in Chicago, I bet I could sell that out. And that kind of turned into, why don't we see if we could do a tour? And then I was like, oh, okay. I don't know if I have 30 minutes. All of a sudden I had a tour booked and I was like, oh, okay. I don't know if I can do that. I mean, and then also I got New York Comedy Festival. That was the first stop on our tours. I did New York Comedy Festival this year. My entire life has become stand-up, much to the frustration of my wife and my book agent, and to a lesser extent, the business wife. So the first time I ever did 30 minutes this year, I did it at a wine bar in Oceanside, and I ate. I kicked a glass of water into the front row.
Okay, that's really funny.
Not
though.
On purpose. It was just a crowd of like really conservative older white people, and they were like not having me. They just were not into it. I could not win them over. After I did that, I was like, maybe I should quit. That's like the first show where I was like, you know what? I don't think this is for me. And I was like, oh my God. And I'm touring. I was like, how am I gonna do, if I couldn't even do 30 minutes for
the worst people in the world, how am I gonna do 30 minutes for people that are, for other better people?
I mean, now it's like, yeah, I can do 30 minutes tonight. Like if you
couldn't impress the folks at Dustin's Downyard Barn, so you can't be a stand-up comedian.
But that's part of it though. Part of it is,
you gotta be able to hang.
Is winning over the people at Dustin's Downyard Barn. You have to make people laugh who wouldn't necessarily like you. Like that's part of getting better. It's part of doing the work. My entire career, every step of the way, honestly, my entire life, if I'm being really honest, has been me sort of having to insist upon myself in spaces that are not necessarily inclined to have me there and are not happy that I'm there. Like when I think about every major thing in my life, every major like moment that like changed my life, it was always because I sort of insisted on being in a space that like didn't necessarily want me. Someone had to fight for me to be in Lady Lake. It was not a group decision. I know that I'm not your first choice, but man, I'm gonna work really hard until you're not as mad about me being here. But you know, it is hard because people who are about my age are like breaking out and like they're, you know, doing, and so I feel like I have to play catch up and like really like fucking hustle because I want to be on the same level as people who are about my age and experience. I think a lot about like, man, I wish I'd started earlier, but like if I had, I wouldn't have had as much to talk about.
Yeah.
Like I don't think I would have been as developed voice-wise. I don't think I would have been as interesting. I think I would have been like, you guys on the dating apps, like it would have been like a lot of that. You know, I think about like, where am I gonna be this time next year? And like, where
it's
am I?
somewhere exciting is the answer.
It is exciting, but it's also scary. I mean, it's just, I didn't want this for so long because the same reason why, like, I know it sounds so stupid, but I'm gonna tell you this anyway. When I first got verified on Instagram, I like threw up because I was.
What color was it?
So sorry, it's your boob.
I know it's mostly are.
I was so anxious. Whenever something good happens to me professionally, my brain immediately is like, when is the other shoe gonna drop? When is something bad gonna happen to me? The truth is that I feel like enough bad things happen to me where I don't know why I'm so worried about it all the time. I had 2 surgeries this year.
I think maybe it's more just like, you might not know how you'll do it, but at the end of the year, here you are and you're on tour and it's going great.
I know, it is going great. And here's the thing, I love touring. I love, I'm sorry, I love you so much. If I could be a touring comedian professionally, that would be the only thing I'd do. We are finding a way to merge my interests.
Stay tuned.
So that's the only thing I'm gonna say cryptically about that. It's so funny, my coach, when we started this, she was like, you know, you're really gonna learn how to be a stand-up on the road. Cause like, that's how you test your material. Like, that's how you learn like what works. The problem is like all the audiences I'm performing for are people who are so happy to see me. And I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm not learning I'm just having a good time. Because like y'all are just like so enthusiastic, so happy, so fun to be around, so fun to perform for. Like there's lots of stuff I don't think actually works, but like you guys seem to think it does. So whatever, I'm just gonna keep doing it. I remember when I did my set at New York Comedy Festival, I was just like, I don't think that I'm necessarily this is the tour where I'm gonna hone a lot of material. This sort of feels like a victory lap for me. I'm on a co-headlining tour. I'm co-headlining with my coach. I sort of skipped a step. So like for a lot of touring stand-ups, you start as like a feature. So like you open for like a headliner. And like, I think it used to be that like you would take your feature around the country with you. There was someone like you knew from like a major city. I think there are some people who still do that. I think in a lot of cases, there are a lot of headliners who get like local features. And so I think like if you're featuring for a headlining comic, that's kind of where you do a lot of learning because you're not performing for your audience, you're performing for someone else's audience. And so you have to like learn how to tailor yourself to their audience. And I think because I'm performing for my audience, I am not learning. I am just playing the hits. And like that's fine. Like listen, I don't want to go through a period where I eat on the road. I just want to have fun. Like
you know, girls just want to have fun.
Doing stand-up. Sometimes people are just like, oh, hey, I want to get into stand-up. How do you get started? The best way to get started is just to start writing jokes and going to open mics. You can watch all the stand-up you want. You can watch it until you're blue in the face. There are different schools of thought about whether or not watching stand-up makes you a better stand-up. I think some people think that it does. I think some people think that it doesn't. I think it's a combination of the two. But the only way to do it is you got to start going to open mics. Going to open mics, meeting people, saying hi, being nice, being present. That's kind of how it starts, because then like you guys decide to put on shows, and then like you're in each other's shows, and then like, you know, you put clips online, and then you get booked on other shows, and then like you get booked on bigger shows. It's a multi-year process.
It's like a ping pong machine of opportunities bouncing off one another.
Yes, and like I think like I have managed to speed up this process because I sort of already had like some built-in infrastructure available to me. But it doesn't make it like necessarily easier, because like there are well-known comedians I'm the same age as that I still can't like go up to and say hi to because I'm less than 2 years into this. Something I've learned is that I'm not gonna lie, I'm gonna be really honest for you. It is really hard for women. I was not prepared. I truly was like, well, I know what it's like to be a girl in the world, or like a girl adjacent, I guess, like girl-esque, sort of girlish. It is bad. It's just structurally. Like, you'll see shows where there'll be like 5 dudes and 1 girl. The idea of like all female stand-up shows, people are like, I don't know, like kind of anomalous. Like it's still like kind of a novelty, which is wild to me. If you are either a woman or non-binary or like some gender that isn't cis male, I think the best thing that you can do is to band together with your community and support each other, because like that's how people rise in circles. They rise in like positive circles, you know?
Yeah.
I love the friends I've made in stand-up. I have so many good friends in stand-up. I have so many people who have enriched my life. I have so many people that I think are so funny. I have so many people that like I feel like I'm kind of coming up with at the same time, who like I'm so excited for them and their careers. I had a conversation with someone the other day who's a comedy manager, and I was just like, you know, the thing I worry about is that like I'm 40, you know, I'm really old to be doing stand-up. And she was like, I don't think that's the case anymore at all. I think there are so many people that are breaking out in their late 40s, in their 50s. Like Michelle Buteau broke out in her mid 40s.
Yeah.
If you are funny and willing to work and willing to be kind and like put your whole genitals into it, it doesn't really matter how old you are if you can devote the time to it. So like, I don't think I should have started earlier. I think I started at the right time, but I do think that I was wrong to be afraid. I think I
did not do it for the right reason.
Yes. I shouldn't have done it,
But
it was
now
for the
you're
wrong
not
reason.
doing it for the right reason.
Yes.
So that's good.
Yes.
This is progress.
Yes.
Go see Kristen on tour.
Yeah,
All this
go
to
see me
say.
on tour. I'll probably have like another update about stand-up in a year or two, or if for some reason we have to end the channel because I'm too successful, but I don't think that'll happen. I think that more likely we will transition it to a different format, because honestly, I loved making videos with you.
I love making videos with you.
I love you so much.
I love you too. All right.
Let's finish it.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye. Well, new videos every Friday.